Hi, and thanks so much for joining me. Today we were talking about this product by Hourglass. I have two shades. It's the Veil Retouching Fluid. If you want to see the try-on, go ahead to the timestamp right here. Otherwise, I'm going to talk a little bit about the product. I picked up sand right here and honey because I initially picked up sand. I had met an Hourglass rep at my Sephora and she suggested sand, and I'd also been communicating with HEIDI, who works for Hourglass as well, via Instagram. If you want to follow her, I'll put her link below. And she suggested honey. So I was trying out sand for a little bit, had it for a couple of weeks, was really liking it, and then I lost it. So when I went back to Sephora, I picked up sand and honey because sand was just a little bit too light for me. And I thought honey would adjust that. So I'm going to show you how I use it because it's a little bit different than how they suggest using it. Now I've been reading up about it and I was a little bit unsure of how I was going to use it in my routine or if I really needed it. So I kind of held off a little bit. I haven't watched any YouTube videos on how people use it. So I kind of just want to give it a go to meet my needs, and maybe these are your needs as well. It says it's an innovative serum-like formula that instantly illuminates to refresh, revive, and retouch the complexion. It's a weightless fluid designed to be used in a multitude of ways, from refreshing any parts of the face that need a touch of hydration, reviving the under eye without caking or creasing, which I think is very innovative. It says apply anywhere on the face for instant illumination and sheer coverage to perfect and refresh the complexion. For best results, gently pat into the skin with fingers, and it has worked really well with just using fingers. I have used a beauty blender and I'll show you how I do that along the way, and I think that's it. Again, there are 6 shades and I have shades 4 and 5 in terms of the deepness of the shades, and there's one beyond the ones that I have here. So 3 lighter than this and 1 deeper than this. I'm going to show you how I use it with my concealers and then also on top of my makeup afterwards as well, so you can see how that looks. So if you're interested in seeing that and hearing my thoughts, please keep watching. At this point, I have on the Galon primer, and then I also have the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation in 7.5 on. So it's a really light base, which I like for summer because I don't like to cover my skin up too much. Typically I will wear my sunscreen, what's it called? Oh, Even Up. But I just wanted to show this on skin, bare skin. I do have SPF for my moisturizer though, so that's at least 1 layer. Usually I have a couple layers. At the end, I'll show you how I use the Even Up product with the Hourglass to touch up throughout the day and add another layer of sunscreen. But I also have the Tatcha Pearl on under my eyes and then the Clé de Peau concealer as well. So that's all I've got on my face right now. Oh, and a little bit of the Chantecaille bronzer just on the perimeter. I'll show you what sand looks like on directly. So I think this is a really good illustration of how this product blurs. Because I do have, you know, I do have those dark areas that I probably will have forever to some degree. Sometimes they're lighter, sometimes they're darker. You can see it refracts light, so it's got a much more diffused effect compared to here. Now what this also reminds me of is the ambient lighting powders, because they will have the same effect on my skin. It'll diffuse that light and kind of blur those imperfections. So to me, I don't know if this is what they intended, but to me, this is like the powder in a liquid concentrated form, so you can really pinpoint where you use it. Okay, I'm gonna try a mix of honey and sand over here. So here we go, a little bit deeper because I've mixed the two now. It's a really lightweight formula too, and I like that it dries down pretty thin. The issue with concealers is that sometimes it takes a lot of layers to build it up. And even when you build it slowly, you can see that texture, especially in the summer when you start to get kind of hot and you start sweating. So this is a very light layer and it feels light on your skin too. I'm gonna add it over here. So even though this is just a little bit too light for me, it does the job of blurring. And I do like putting both colors together. It's about a half and half mix to get a closer shade, because then I can just go out with a no makeup look and go out like that. I'm gonna put it side by side now so you can see the difference. And then of course there are different shades of tan on my face, and my forehead tends to be a little bit darker than everywhere else, so I'm gonna put just straight honey onto my forehead. Yeah, you can see if I had put sand on there, it would have been too light. I just pat it with my fingers. I've tried using a beauty blender and I like the finish of it, but it just thins it out too much. So sometimes I will let it just sit for a little bit and then go lightly over it with the beauty blender to disperse it on the edges. And I will let they're more like freckles on my nose, so I like to let those show. If these were freckles, I would definitely have them show through, but they're more like splotches. Then I'll take honey and just add it to my chin. So you can also see how it helps to just blur that area. I'm adding it right here into my chin. It can get a little bit darker right here and a little bit on the like a greenish tone. So the honey has a bit of warmth to it. It's a bit of a peachy tone to it, so it'll color correct too. Okay, now that it's set, I've got a dampened beauty blender, but it's pretty, I mean, it's on the drier side of damp. I'm just gonna mainly focus around the edges just to blend in a little. So you can see, not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it did put a really nice blurring base down for my concealer. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and conceal now so you can see what that looks like. So by the way, you've noticed, I'm sure my hair is down, which is, if you watch regularly, I usually have it up so you can see everything, but I thought I'm just focusing on the center of my face, so you don't need to see the size of my face. Also, I need my roots down, so this is a good way to cover them up. Because if I have my hair up, you can see everything. I'm just gonna go in. I've mixed, let me just show you. I've mixed the Nars Soft Matte Complete Concealer in Biscuit with this Becca Backlight Targeted Color Corrector in Peach. And I take a little bit of each. Oh, you can see there's a bit of a crossover. I take a little bit of each on my brush and I just mix it on my hand like this. Now, I did talk about getting maybe the deeper color in that concealer because I like it so much, but I found that just adding a bit of that Becca Peach in there does a really nice job of adjusting the color when I'm tan, without actually having to get a deeper shade. So now I just have to go in with that one thin layer of concealer. By the way, this is a Ray Morris concealer brush. This is probably the step that takes me the longest when it comes to makeup. Mostly because I want my skin tone to look as even as possible and also as natural as possible. It's really easy to do this if you just kind of put a thick layer on, but I don't want it to be detectable or obvious in real life. I don't think anyone wants that, but this is kind of more like what I do on a daily basis. Now that I've got my concealer on top of that, I'm gonna go back in with the product, and it's kind of dried up on my hands. I'm gonna go in again and just mix sand and honey. Well, actually, I don't mix them on my hand. I put them side by side. Oh, I put them side by side like that. And then I will go in this time with a brush and mix them. And I'm gonna pat it on. I like to do this because it'll help just, again, blur on top of that concealer. And take a bit of that sand and just add it here. Right on the sides of my nose and then down. I'm going to finish my makeup and come right back, and then I'll show you how I reapply this on top of powder. So I finished up with mostly Hourglass products, not all, but mostly Hourglass products. I've got the Veil Translucent Setting Powder right here, and then I went in with, it's easier for me to tell you because I will probably forget to add them down below if I don't do this. Then of course the Ambient Lighting Powder in Radiant Light. Yes, this is my second one, and look, I've hit pan already. And then what did I use? I also used, I've also finished up with the Nars Luster Blush, which I've talked about before. I love it. It's really subtle. I'm not using as much blush as I used to. I don't know why, but I just like it that it's a very, very faint wash of color. I finished up with the Terracotta Sun Trio Bronzer by Guerlain, and this one is in Deep. And I did a video on this if you want to see that, because I have two of them, but I've been using this one more often. I just kind of swirled all the colors together and used that on the perimeter of my face. 9 times out of 10 I get a question about my lipstick, and I always forget what it is, so I'll tell you now. It is the Hourglass Girl Influencer? It is the Hourglass product. Is this a Stylo? Lip Stylo? I can't remember. I'll put the name below. It's but the shade is Influencer. Is that all I finished? Oh yes, no, I also finished up with Euphoric Strobe Light by Hourglass in Euphoric. Yeah, right? Strobe lighting powder in Euphoric. Okay. All right. Now, I told you I was gonna go ahead and show you what this looks like on top of makeup. So I've powdered, I've done all that, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I used it under my eyes. So I'm gonna take sand. So this is where I use them separately. I'm just gonna take a little, and I'm just gonna dot it like this because I wanna control how much I have on there. So I'm gonna just add it to this area. So if there's an area that gets dry or wears away on me, it's right here on my eyes. So I'm just going to pat that in. And it doesn't do anything weird to the powder underneath. Hopefully you can see the difference between the two sides. To me, it just brightens that up. I'll add it to the other side as well. And I did bake quite a bit under here. So there's a lot of powder. And I would say sand is the right shade for this area, right under the eyes for me. Now, another place where makeup will break down on me, especially in these areas, because that's where I get a little bit oily, not a little bit. I get oily here in the summer because it's hot, and then makeup will kind of slide around. So I'm gonna show you what I do right here. I'm looking around because I'm looking for my sunscreens. Now this is my sunscreen that I use. It's Even Up. It's by Color Science. It brightens, corrects, and protects, which is what I like about it because it acts on your skin as well as protecting it, and it's 50. Now, this is the only sunscreen that I've used where I can tell that it's still in place even when I wash my face at night. But I do like to add a little bit more during the day just to refresh that. And here is the shade. It's way too light for me. So what I do is I take this and I take the Retouching fluid in Honey. It's the darker of the two, the deeper of the two. And I will put them side by side again, just like this, a little bit. And then I'll mix them. See if I can do this backwards. You just mix them together. And then what I do, because this deepens the shade, I will just take this and I'll add it to these areas right here on top of my powder. Then I just pat it in. So if you have any like dark splotches or just areas of your face that you want to make sure you have extra protection in terms of SPF, then this works really well. And what's nice is that, let's see, this Even Up product. The Even Up product is water resistant to 40 minutes. And I had quite a test with this yesterday. I had done this and then I went to the dentist because I thought I was only going to have 18 Invisalign trays, but my little tooth down here, this guy is not moving, so I had to have another set done. So I've got 60 more. Anyway, they take out these little, I don't know what they're technically called, they're like little tabs that the Invisalign adhere to. They don't adhere, they anchor to them. So when you have them in your mouth, they stay in the correct place. So I had to get new anchors put on for my Invisalign, and they had to remove the other ones, and there was water all over the place. They were removing the previous anchors and putting the new ones on. There was a lot of just, it was water. It was like I had taken a shower. Anyway, long story short, this had not budged. This was in the same place that it was even after all of that water. So I was pretty impressed with how it worked together. And then I just kind of keep tapping it until I see that it's all reset. Then I will take a little bit of that translucent powder again, the Veil Translucent Setting Powder. And then if you're worried about texture or some kind of like a raised surface, which can happen to me sometimes when it is hot, I will get a blotting paper. This one's by Boscia, and I think it's like a peppermint blotting linen. So I'll just take that and press it against my face. And then you can just kind of pat down the surface. And that kind of minimizes the appearance of pores as well. As for the retouching fluid, I'm really happy I picked it up. It's definitely a more specialized kind of tool, I think. I think it takes practice to use this because it wasn't just like a slap-on thing for me. I really had to find a way to maximize what it was. And what gave me the biggest hint about how I could use this the most, or to its potential with me, is that I had been using this By Terry Cellular Rose CC serum, the one in Sunny Flash, which is out of stock a lot, but I was using it all over my face, and then also concentrating on those darker areas just like I did with this, because it did a really nice blurring effect. But this is kind of pricey to be doing that just for this little area here, but I want to try something similar, because I think that's what this was created for, as a more targeted blurring tool. And this was something that I just kind of used for that, because I did notice it was blurring some imperfections anyway. The color on the Hourglass is a little bit more peachy than the By Terry. So if you have this, I know a lot of people have this because, like I said, it's sold out frequently. I can show you the colors side by side. And I do prefer the Honey shade by Hourglass because it's got a little bit more warmth to it. So here they are side by side. Here's the Honey by Hourglass, and then this is the By Terry. It's a little bit more mocha-y. So if you are more of a mocha tone, I think that is a great shade for you. But if you're more warm like me, Honey is a better shade for those targeted areas. So am I glad I bought these? Yes, but I think that if you have a need, it makes more sense. Like for me, my need is I want to blur some of those areas that I conceal first so I don't use as much concealer. And then another need would be that I want to refresh this area without doing all of my makeup. Sometimes I have evening events to go to and I don't want to redo my whole face, and it's usually just the areas that are broken down, like right under here and then maybe here, that I would retouch. So that's why I love Hourglass. They have innovative products that can, again, change the game. That ambient lighting powder is probably the most powerful game-changing product I've tried from them. So I'm willing to try whatever they put out because I've been happy with all of the other products. As you can see, I use a lot of the things that they make on the daily anyway. So happy to give this a try. Happy I have it. It will remain part of my toolkit just because, again, it reduces the number of layers of concealer for me and refreshes that eye area really easily without having to start over. So if you learned something from this video, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. It says to apply anywhere on the face for instant illumination and sheer coverage for perfect and what? This and the retouching fluid. Blah.